Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a session and some of the things that you can do on it, just sort of basic getting going. This will be primarily targeted for kind of small group meetings rather than lecturing. I found that this has worked pretty well. If you've done kind of any kind of video conferencing, it's very, very similar to that. Um, Not particularly extraordinary. So again, I'm assuming that you have access to Collaborate Ultra, and again, you can use the course room or you can create a session. And this seems to be, as you can see, I have a lot of sessions already created. So create a session and give it a name. This I'm just going to call it test session. Start time, it'll start to the default to the current time. Oh, sorry. You can allow or suppress guest access. At the moment, for me, it's just so much simpler to have guest access. I leave it on. For small group meetings, particularly if you're expecting people to share their work, it's helpful to default their role to presenter. You can put people up and down for presenter and participant, but a presenter can share stuff they can share their screen, they can share files, and so if you want to go over like some coursework or you want to see them demo something, then this is where you want to go. If you default to moderator, they have yet more powers, but you can't downgrade them. So I think for many circumstances, it's just a little bit easier to do that. You can start a start time and an end time. You can allow for early entry, which I strongly recommend, and I strongly recommend making it longer than 15 minutes. I noticed that people were trying to get in earlier just to see what was what, and so let it 45 or even an hour, it doesn't really matter. For my year one tutorials, I've been leaving it, actually for my MSc projects, I've been leaving it as an open-ended session, so they can just come back in and use it for their own discussion, or if they want to talk with me, we can just go to an existing session without me having to faff around with stuff. There's some other sessions. I think the most important one that I've been allowing is to allow them to download recordings. You don't have to record a session, but even with project students, particularly if they have difficulty with English or other issues, for example, with their connectivity, having a recording can be extremely helpful. And otherwise, I leave everything at its default for small group. So one thing to notice that there's a guest link, and that's mostly how I get people to join. I send them the link, because then they just got to click on the link and everything is groovy for them. So now I'm going to join this new session. And this is what you see. This is your first screen. And unfortunately, it looks a little daunting because there's not a lot of cues. But the key thing to notice is that there are 3 command and control areas. There's the hamburger menu in the upper left. And when you open that, there's not a lot that goes on here. Probably the most important things are the fact that this is where you start and stop recordings. And this is the canonical way to leave the session. You can also just close the window, it doesn't matter, but if you like to leave the session, here's how you would do it. You have the icons at the bottom. So these are primarily for your current interaction. So you can share audio, share video. I'm going to turn on my video. It'll say video preview. Sorry about my backlighting. So I share my video. And again, because this is for me, other people's video will show up here. And this is cute. You know, it allows you to give some feedback or say that your way. It's another place to leave. I haven't had any real, I mean, it jumps to some things. It doesn't seem that useful to me, but it's there. Sorry. And then this allows people to raise their hand, which will then give you a little ping that they've raised their hand, and that's kind of helpful for managing discussions where people can't directly see each other. So the last control area, and this is probably the most important one, is the Collaborate panel. So this opens the Collaborate panel, and I generally just leave this open the whole time. So there are 4 icons at the bottom. One is for text chat, and you can do private chat, you can do broadcast chat. This will pop up over people speaking, so you can have side conversations or people ask questions through the chat. And I think that's kind of a helpful way to instead of talking over each other, I think that's quite helpful. You have a list of the participants and their status. This is a place where you can see, right now you can see that there's no mic by my name. If I turn the mic on, this shows that I'm talking through. If you've done any teleconferencing, video conferencing, you know that background noise and just chatter can be a real problem. I encourage people to mute their mic until they talk. If you're the moderator, just keep an eye here. If you see somebody trying to talk and they can't, you're not hearing them, then it might be that they're muted. I think you can mute people from here as well. I don't think that shows because I'm just the only person. And then the most interesting one is the share content panel. So this is where most of the interactive stuff, the most sharing of material, obviously, happens. So this primary, secondary content thing, one thing I actually found pretty useful in my small group tutorial is to share a blank whiteboard. You can make it so that everybody can write on it or just you can write on it. But for example, I was using this with my MSc project meeting to help organize my discussion of their work. So they're working on using testing for assessment. So I said, so your project is assessment by testing. And there's 2 threads. One is, again, assessment testing, test-driven assessment. Sorry, I'm going to have lots of typos. The other is assessing tests. And, I just kept, like I would on the whiteboard, I kept building it up for them physically on the whiteboard. I think using the freehand pen works best if you're using like a good quality stylus like the Apple Pencil on an iPad, but it's okay for this. The text isn't editable, so that's a bit of a pain, but it's quite workable, and it gives them at least some sort of visual guidance if you haven't like prepared something, or if you have some other tool that you're comfortable typing in and manipulating, like even a presentation program, you can always share that screen. You can also make little questions, which can be helpful. Is this working? It's probably more useful in a lecture context, but even in a small group setting, I think it could be helpful. You can share your screen or applications. You can share your entire screen, or you can find a particular application. I think with a little planning, the application, if you can have a specific application that you're sharing, it's a little bit easier, even if you're just using it to scribe or to type stuff, share a text editor, or you can share a particular tab as well. So if you also have your like a Google Doc open that you're scribing in, you can share it. I mean, they can share it through Google Doc, but again, that's available. For small groups, you don't need breakout groups. Sharing files is handy. Basically, let's see if I can find a quick PDF. You can just share. Well, in this case, I think this is that's a PDF. Sorry. Let me do it this way. Documents, PDF. So you can share arbitrary PDFs, you can share PowerPoint documents, and basically if you share a PDF or PowerPoint document or an image, you can page through it. It won't do anything fancy, but at least you can go back and forth. You can also, oh boy, I really picked a bad one. Let's see if I can get another one that's smaller. It's a screenshot. I'll go faster. Great. Sorry. As you can see, I didn't quite plan this as well as I could have, but that's okay. You're all fine. sure, very tolerant. So if you click on this, you share it. Basically, you can see a preview of the pages, so you can navigate through to the page or the slide that you want. Once you click on it, it will show up to everyone. You can see you have a little forward and back here. Oh no, my connection is poor. And you have all your drawing tools, so you can use that to emphasize stuff or otherwise add little bits of text and go through. Given that everybody's a presenter, if you set it up for presenter, then they can share their windows or their documents with you, and you can have this kind of collaborative setup. And that's pretty much it for small group situations, I think. And again, people can drop off. I ran an MSc project this morning, and one of them asked to do a recording. And so I think that's a very useful thing, particularly if you're having, on the other side, erratic connections. I'll do another video about running lectures soon.